when
Yeah,
demand
Beth
hits,
was impressed
and we
with how
need you
big
offline, you gotta get
the
offline.
facility is there.
And it's funny too,
big
because
her
it's
area
a 13
is.
state consortium that
We,
they're
we
part of
looked,
for this
we
thing. So it's
first
not
looked at
bad
just,
weather here or
it's just a
whatever.
single
No,
room,
it's on the ground and the grid.
but
Yeah, and so
then,
it was funny because
they didn't have any
I don't know
available,
if you guys experienced
so
this.
they
Because
said,
I've
you
been
know,
out of it
we'll
for a
do,
year and a half
we'll give you a
now,
one
but
bedroom for, and
I
they
think the
took
last
money
couple
off
years I
it
was
because
doing
what
it,
we
you know,
wanted was
we'd
the one
have
room.
2 or 3
But I'm,
events
actually I'm happy it
summer,
worked out
and
that
we
way,
had one for that deep
to give her a
freeze,
little more
Mhm.
space.
and
Sure.
we were talking
then,
to DTE,
You know,
they
people
said
stop by, they're not in their
the first
bedroom,
deep freeze
Right.
back in like 2015 was the first time they had
feels
to do that
a
in
little,
like
you know,
25
less
years.
like a hospital,
But then they said
Yes.
since then, they've had to do it 2 or 3 times a year.
so,
Yeah.
Good.
you know, I think
And it's
she's
crazy too, 'cause you
adjusting.
got an hour.
Yep.
I mean, for some of my sites, I wasn't on site
a
or
big
getting
change.
remote staging, so it was
Yeah.
like that app that they have that tells you whether or not it's like high, low. You know, I was looking at that every day that we were like 85 degrees plus.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you don't, one of our sites,
Yeah, they want us to shut down in the summer. They'll want us to shut down at certain hours
yeah.
so that people can run their air conditioners.
But is that just a general rule of thumb or only as needed?
It's just generally as needed. They'll
I
monitor
remember
the
doing
system.
that with my mother, taking,
Yeah.
We had
She was-
that one project.
she
that
had
we've been
dementia,
talking about.
and she
Nicholson
was
South,
living by
which is a
herself.
stranger and just
And
actually
my sister and I
on the other
moved
side of the
her
road,
to
up the road here.
adult foster care.
We're talking to ITC to move
And
the high
she
voltage
went,
lines.
and it took her a while to get
That's a real
adjusted, but
trick.
every time you go to see
It's
her,
about a
she'd
$2
say,
million,
well,
almost
when are
$3
you
million
gonna take me home,
cost.
you know? And so
We're trying
I'd
to
say, well,
justify, you know,
this
are you
is
gonna
your
spend that
home.
$3 million
and
to
she'd
move
go,
the power
she'd be
poles,
alright
and
then.
then
Right.
they have to
But,
reroute their power so that they
They
can
have a
shut.
wing there,
shut it down.
Right.
It's taken
for
us
dementia.
years,
Do they?
yeah,
I believe
it's
it.
it's a separate
I
wing,
believe it.
and
and it's
I
only,
think,
it's
I
only
think
at
there's
some point
12
when
or
you call
14.
the president of
people
the
there.
company, that the guy really wants to come out.
That's where, Bob
Yeah.
Knopf was,
Yeah.
Okay,
In the
I
yes,
dementia
did it once with,
section.
yeah.
yeah,
with,
so.
Enbridge. They have a power pump station for their oil,
Yeah.
But their
and,
dining room,
I was walking
You know,
through
they
the
have
parcel,
they come and get their
a
order,
number of years ago.
You know, it's like
and,
going
I
to a
see these
restaurant
guys
every
showing
meal.
up in, you know,
and
yellow
the
and
chef
a hard hat and
is
on the property. I'm
really
going,
good.
Good.
I walked up friendly, I'm saying, you know, what are you doing on the property? Oh, we're coming through here with a high voltage line. I said, but you
Yeah,
don't
when
own
my
it.
sister and I went and looked through it, we both said, well, we'll
Oh,
move
yes, we
in.
do.
She doesn't want to,
No,
we'll
no.
move in here.
$2 million
Come do
later,
your laundry.
they were making a route around the property.
Around you, yeah. Did they think they had an easement or?
They thought that they had an easement.
Yeah.
Then they say, what they usually say is if they don't have an easement.
Yeah, we don't
Well,
want
we've
to
got an
hear any
occupation
news about
line
Susan
here.
moving.
We put this in the 1940s or something. And
Oh,
Well, I
goodness.
said,
Yeah, I
fine,
don't
how
think they'd
wide
let
is
me
that?
in.
it's about 10 feet. I said, if you can get a bulldozer in here in 10 feet.
Yeah, right, yeah. You can have 10 feet.
It was just hilarious. But it took
I know there's
a
at
long
least
time
one
to get
married
them
couple there.
Is
I
that-
can't imagine that DTE was
I don't know
not
if there's
real
more, but there's
happy
at least one.
with the engineers who they hired with Enbridge.
Oh, for.
I know.
Oh, they,
My
Enbridge
mother-in-law
it
was
was a mess when they were coming through to do
in,
another line through here.
Yeah.
One guy, in, I
or
heard
in,
the story from the Enbridge people
they're out,
in,
well, your mom's
right
Oh,
across in
the
St.
Lake
Clair.
Roy Nursing Center?
nursing.
They were gonna
center.
go across the
She
St.
was
Clair
there
River
for almost 5
to
years, I
Canada,
think.
and that was gonna be the
And,
attachment.
We would
They needed the
occasionally
power.
go,
And for
and
some
we
reason,
would-
somebody,
Mhm.
you know, like, one year
Spike.
we went,
he
well,
connected
we'd gone to
the lower
Jeff
voltage
and
to the
Rose's
higher
house for
voltage, and he must have burned out
opening gifts
300
early in
homes
the morning and
of all the
having coffee,
appliances.
cinnamon roll.
He said,
They'd
all
get
he had
up
to
and
do
the
was
kids
just
would
hold his
call us
checkbook
and
and
have-
say, buy what you
Say,
need.
hey,
Yeah,
we're ready,
right.
come get your coffee and the cinnamon rolls are ready.
Yeah.
So we'd go do that. Well, then we went to see her then at noon and had dinner with her.
Oh, that's nice.
Neat. And then we went
well, we just put a lock on the handle so that somebody can't just turn off the valve.
You guys ready?
Yeah.
All right, we'd like to call to order tonight's Charter Township of Oxford Planning Commission regular meeting dated November 14th, 2024. If we could all rise and pay respects to the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, can we note the roll?
Noted, there is a quorum. Mr. Nold, Mr. Berger, and Mr. Spiz are all excused. And everyone, please make sure that the light on your mic is green and that you speak into it.
All right, let's go through the agenda. Noted the roll. Approval for tonight's agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda, dated November 14th, 2024.
I'll second.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Do we have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Any conflict of interest, anything to disclose this evening? Seeing none. Approval of the minutes, Planning Commission regular meeting, October 10th, 2024.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes from the Planning Commission regular meeting, October 10th, 2024.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. 7, public comment on items not scheduled for public hearing or on this agenda. Seeing none, we will move on to commissioners' comments. Anybody have anything they would like to share, bring up, discuss? Seeing none. 10, unfinished business, master plan update.
No public hearing.
Oh, public hearing, which we don't have anything on the agenda for this evening.
Okay.
So we'll skip over that to unfinished business, master plan update.
Good evening, Mateo Pasalacqua, Carlisle Workman Associates. We are the planning consultants for the township. Good to see everybody again. We had a little bit of a break at the end of October, but back to it tonight with plenty to get through. So again, in our continuing work towards finalizing a full draft of the master plan, what we have in front of you tonight are 2 items that we're going to go through. One is a master plan, is a draft master plan, which is really more or less to gauge your thoughts on the formatting, not so much the text. But just the layout, the images, the way it kind of flows. It's important that these plans be engaging. If they're just handed to you like the stuff we all used to read in college, that was Times New Roman, 10 font, full margins, top and bottom, no pictures, no one's gonna read it. So you do have to kind of take a little bit of the elementary school mentality and let's make it colorful, let's make it flow. So we did want to get your interest or your thoughts on that initial format this evening. And then we did present an implementation matrix. So we've been talking a lot about vision, goals, and objectives. And then at the very end of that, we were talking about strategies. So what you have tonight in this implementation matrix is essentially the strategies associated with the vision, goals, and then objectives that we've been working on. So this is really the meat of it. Obviously, there are a lot to go through. So my plan for the implementation matrix is really just to go page by page, kind of a going once, going twice, going 3 times, and then on to the next. Not looking to rush. We'll take all notes, all thoughts, all conversations. But again, there's a lot of information there this evening. It's not the last time we'll talk about it, but tonight is kind of our first run at any kind of major changes we want to make or take. And then one other note, once we get to it, is you may have noticed that in the implementation matrix, if something was accompanied by an asterisk at the end, that asterisk indicated that was either a new or revised strategy. So it was either revised from 2019 or it's completely new to 2024. If it has nothing in, at the end of it, then it's a carryover from 19 that's still applicable. And then we did go through and remove anything that had been accomplished from 2019 to 2024. So with that, let's start with the fun stuff. What did you guys think of kind of the initial format of the master plan?
I can jump in.
Sure.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, the pictures you mentioned, kind of threw me off. Can you hear me okay? My mic okay? Comparing the 2019 to the draft, I found myself flipping back and forth a lot, trying to compare the 19 to the draft. And, strategies are moved to the matrix, whereas before they were basically where the pictures are now. And I don't know, I'm wondering when the final is done, what's this master plan gonna look like? Is this matrix gonna be in the back of it, of all the pictures and all the nice stuff?
Right.
What does that look like? Do you have an idea?
Yeah, I mean, right now, I think that the implementation matrix, they typically are found towards the end of the master plan, just because it's a kind of a culmination of everything that the plan talks about. But again, I can kind of collect feedback and see what's possible as far as whether or not there's a preference to potentially put these strategies where it just goes vision, goals, objectives, strategies.
So the strategies seem to be kind of the meat of when I had to make decisions in the past on a vote. As an example, there was language from 2019 that I could lean on and really use as an example. From April of this past year, we had a vote on a development, and they were asking for a modification to the standard. It was a 25-foot buffer on wetland. And that specific language, that strategy, really helped me with my vote on that. That language was so specific, it was like our forefathers knew that we were gonna have that come up someday, and they wanted to make sure that we had language in there to help protect that. So, I think it's really important to have good specific wording to help us make decisions that they're objective and.
But your point being, for the format, is that maybe these are in the same area that the vision, goals, objectives are in.
I'm just used to reading the 19 right now. I'm so used to going through the 19 and.
Right, that's what I mean, so 19 goes vision, goals, objectives, strategies.
Right.
We had kind of talked earlier,
And that's,
maybe before your time. Yeah.
that's why I'm kind of the new guy in the block.
Yeah.
And, I don't wanna change anything something that's been put in motion for a good reason. But I'm just acclimating to, that layout, that's all.
Any thoughts from the commissioners on that? Again, we can try to go back and understand. I think it was just we wanted implementation strategies to stand out really a lot on their own, which is why we kind of gave them its own chapter at the end. But is there any other thoughts or comments on the format layout?
I like the layout. I found it was easy to read. I mean, the 19 was good, but I'll be honest, I found it somewhat boring. At least this, new people to Oxford and even current residents, I think they would find it interesting to read this and then go into the implementation. Whereas, kind of boring, you look through the first 4 or 5 pages and then it would get set aside. I think this layout, this diagram would make people read it front to cover.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
Well, I went through it using the index to understand each section. And it looked to me at this point, I realize this is not complete, but that item 5, the background is missing. Item 6, you've got goals and objectives. You should have the word vision in there as well, I think. I have a number of minor corrections, and rather than take up everybody's time, there are things like words are wrong, or you're missing a period, or you're missing a word. I've marked it up, and I'd like to give it to you after,
Sure.
so that you can then use it to go through. And I thought you were off to a very good start. I liked the pictures. I think that would help some people with the reading. The only question I had about pictures is there are a number that have balloons in them. And I realize we see a number of balloons in the air over Oxford. Most of those, I believe, are coming from Sky Adventure. And Sky Adventure is not, to my knowledge, is not inside of Oxford Township. They're just across the border in Addison. So I don't know whether that has any impact or not, but it's something to realize.
So just to be clear, that more or less it doesn't originate in the community or like trademarking issues with using pictures of their stuff?
Yeah.
The second one? Okay, alright, just making sure.
So then, on page 6, at the bottom of the first column, it looks like it says the Oxford Township Master Plan, presented for adopting its own independent master plan. I didn't quite understand what that said, what that meant.
And would items like this be in the markup that you referred to?
Yes,
Perfect. Then yeah, I mean, if you're comfortable just providing that after the meeting,
okay.
I mean, if there's ones that you'd like to bring up specifically, go for it. I don't wanna like.
Let's see if we can quickly run through some of these so
Sure.
the other guys can, On page 7, you've got 2 bullets, and then it says to be, division goals,
Okay.
and I think there's, that 2B probably shouldn't be there, and there should be a dot and realigned.
Yep.
Okay. Then on page 8, under community open house, the first line there, you've got community house. It probably should have the word open house in, or open, between community and house. Page 9, Planning Commission workshops. You have the dates of January to June of this year. Shouldn't it be January to November? Isn't this a sort of a workshop?
It's probably January to TBD.
Yeah,
Yeah, I gotcha.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
Okay. Keep going here. Oh, on page 13, talks about commercial land uses. And there, the photograph of the ladies playing cornhole. I don't know how that fits with commercial uses. There might be a more appropriate.
Recreational one?
Right, well, I don't know why it would be recreational when it's under commercial use, land
Oh, I'm
use.
seeing the picture would be under recreational.
No. Oh, this picture would be,
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you did that, then you'd have to move the one of Phil riding his bike.
Well, we might get there. Okay, on page 14, on the first line, where it's the goal, it says, industrial development in Oxford Township should be, and you got cited to minimize. I don't think that word fits. I know this is somewhat detailed. Then maybe I got tired at that point. And then I got to the implementation matrix, and I stopped, because I didn't quite understand how we thought we were gonna fill that out.
Are you referring to this, the next piece?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Was that the crux of your edits, or did you still?
Yes, those were my edits, but I'll still be happy to give you my copy.
Okay, alright, great. Any other thoughts? Again, you know, sounds like the impression overall is positive, some tweaks to play with. Any improvements?
I looked over the design. Overall, I was really happy with the draft. I didn't critique it as much as like running it, you know, with a fine-tooth comb, as far as like looking for spelling errors or some of these. The layout is what I was kind of specifically looking at.
Sure.
And I was kind of happy with the layout itself. Now, critiquing some of the pictures and stuff, like I wasn't going to get that detailed or very specific related to it, but I could see how you could if you really, really start to dive deep into it. But overall, I'm happy with it.
Great. Well, good. We're glad to hear it. We'll look you know, got a few tweaks to make, but this will kind of be the bones that we use to build the full draft once it's ready to show. All right, great. Okay, so then on to the implementation matrix. So kind of as I alluded to earlier, as we discussed, this is kind of the end of the line for the vision, goals, and objectives, because these are now the strategies that really kind of highlight specifics of what the township or the planning commission, I mean, various entities may want to pursue over the next 5 years as it relates to all the different goals that we've talked about for the community, related to development, related to natural preservation, related to zoning. I mean, I don't want to say you name it, it's here, but there's a lot of stuff here. So with that, I kind of want to start with the first question of, you know, we have these, we've set it up with this column system where we outline a strategy, we talk about a time frame for implementation, it's kind of your priority list. Responsibility, is there a specific department, organization, either within the township or outside of the township that could be charged with something like this or partnered with? And what is the funding source? We don't have to answer those 3 questions tonight, but from a formatting perspective, do the columns seem appropriate? Are there ones that should go? Are there ones we should add? Let's start with Mr. Turner.
This is where I stopped, because I wasn't quite sure how we were going to use this. I would rather have seen, if I go back to the index and look at the information in section 5 and also the information in section 7. If we had what you were planning to put in for those 2 sections, then maybe the strategy implementation would get broken down and go with each of those.
Well, so this is,
Section 5 is the background, and I don't see that was really here.
well, do you mean like as far as like a discrepancy between the 2? As what's in this and what's in the implementation?
No. The information for section 5 was not here in any format like this.
Like this?
No,
No.
no, like this, like the rest.
Okay. You're saying that the formatting discrepancy between the 2?
Well, if I go through here, what you gave us, and I look for the background information, the regional context, existing land use map and category, they don't appear in here.
Correct, right, so, because it's not a full draft yet.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
And so I thought if I saw that, plus section 7, which is the land use plan, then I could maybe take these and look at them and make some sense out of them.
I gotcha. All right, well, let's,
And the time frame of estimation looks fine. Who might be responsible, but where are you going to draw the funding from?
well, like I said, we're not answering those questions this evening. It's more of a formatting perspective. Like, do you think that the funding column is appropriate, or do you think it's, to kind of get what I'm asking?
Yeah, I don't know that the funding is necessary,
Can
personally.
I ask a question? Like, let me ask you this. Why did you guys lay it out in this type of format as compared to, like, what made you change to this visual way of presenting it?
I mean, a lot of, unless there are very specific projects, initiatives, or things of that nature that just need that level of guidance, this can be more of a preference item. We have found that it does kind of help prioritize and give direction of kind of like, how are we going to kick this off? You know, how are we going to take this strategy and utilize it? And it says, well, this is like a year 3 thing, so we don't need to do it now. This department or this group or this body's kind of been identified as the potential lead on it, and we do have options for funding. So it's really, I guess it's just to do a little bit of your homework before you actually get into the project itself. And it offers a little bit of guidance on, again, if you're going to these strategies, instead of having 30 strategies that are just there for you over the next 5 years, you have 30 strategies with a priority level assigned to them and kind of the next step of the group that would take them on. This isn't a take it or leave it kind of format. It just helps provide structure and guidance when you go, when you kind of start going through these items and picking which ones you pursue.
Would this appear in the appendix to the master plan?
This,
Or would it get broken down under the various sections?
this would be its own section. I mean, we changed, the fonts, the formatting would all fall in line with what you've seen tonight, but it would be its own section, structured relatively the same way. It wouldn't be an appendix, it would be its own section. Or as, we've potentially talked about.
So this would sort of fall under section 8 of your appendix?
Yes, the way that this is, so you can see it's the implementation matrix under 8. And again, this table of contents might shift as we work on it, but the intent is that, yes, it's kind of its own subsection.
Okay.
Did I answer you? So with that, is there kind of a yes or a no towards the columns?
I guess the next thing is, with responsibility and funding, are those kind of, my question is, are those necessary columns to have in there? Who puts that responsibility information in there for us? Are we supposed to say that, or does somebody else help us to give that information?
It can kind of go both ways. I mean, it can be guided by you as far as your thoughts on who might. There's some that probably are relatively obvious as far as who might take the lead on them. But it's kind of a both ways. We can take a stab at it from the perspective of like what would make the most sense for us, and then have the planning commission tweak it from there. Again, this is not a take it or leave it. If the responsibility or the funding just seems too subjective or too, how do we know? They can be removed.
I would say there would be information that would probably change over time, and that I don't think it's, my personal opinion is a thing that is it absolutely necessary to have in there.
Responsibility and funding, or just
Responsibility and funding. Because if we had a time frame, wouldn't it be taken care of by the responsible parties without actually specifically naming those responsible parties, right? Does that make sense with the statement that I made? Yeah. Where we don't need to call it out, it would get done by the responsible parties.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, I think like there's certain things that are Parks and Rec all day. Like there's just things that will make sense, and if there's things that aren't, or it's a collaboration, then like I said, you can kind of fill it in as you go. But sounds like, is there an agreement that maybe responsibility and funding goes
Maybe combine the two of them.
to be what?
Responsibilities and funding, this is a Parks and Rec funded by grants. That way you'd free up a column to put maybe a priority tab to say, this is a high priority, or this is a down the road type thing.
That makes sense, and that, I think we really just get into the branding of time frame as far as priorities. Is it called time frame, is it called priority? I think they might be one and the same.
Okay.
Come on, Don, I can see it.
So,
Your poker
yeah, I
face
guess
is
along
awful.
along the same lines as what they're saying, I agree that, you know, if I'm looking at white space on a page and, you know, the responsibility of funding columns are taking up a lot of white space, and, you know, from a readability standpoint, if you're concerned about that at all, you could save a lot of space if these are either eliminated or combined, or, you know, they become evident. Once they become a priority, it's like, okay, we need to define who's going to do that. If it's a year one or year two thing, that needs to be put in motion pretty quick and define who's going to be doing it. And
So maybe,
I just wanted to add,
Yeah.
maybe I'm going a little bit further, but, everything that I looked at, I kind of flagged in a sort of a 1 to 2 year category, was things related to traffic development density and preserving natural features, the things that the community seemed to speak up about the most in the survey.
Sure.
So,
Let me maybe this is what works. Maybe responsibility and funding get thrown in the text above to say that, you know, the priority list is kind of what is our guide to tackling these, you know, these tasks, at which time, you know, responsible organizations and or funding sources will be identified. You know, we can kind of put it in the text, but leave it open enough to where you're not tied, you don't feel tied to what's in the box. And then the flip side is maybe the time frame for completion is a priority, high, low, medium, as opposed to tying you to, you gotta do this year one, you gotta do this year three. Comfortability around that?
I like that. I like that
I like
idea
that.
a little much better.
Okay.
yeah, I like that better.
I would think that anything you have on there that's years 1 or 2 is gonna be a pretty small list, because they'd be done, or being worked on by now if we have 10 things that are 1 or 2 years, right?
We'll only start the clock when it gets adopted.
I don't know
I
if we'll
promise.
achieve those. You know?
Okay. Alright, so we'll move the responsibility and funding into the text. We'll change time frame to priority, and we'll use that format. Okay, so next is going through the strategies. And so we've got quite a lot here. Again, if it's an asterisk, it's either from 2019 that's been modified or it's new. If it has nothing, then it's carryover. And then we did remove some from the 19 that have already been accomplished in the community. So I'm gonna, kind of the questions to keep in mind as we go from page to page, because I'm not gonna read every single one word for word, is what do we keep? What do we get rid of? Is there something that needs to be added? You know, just your thoughts on them. So I'm just gonna start with page 1, and I think probably the best way is just I'll go left to right and right to left, just to give you a break.
That's okay.
And we can start with that. So on page 1, Mr. Bailey, were there any of these strategies that you had any thoughts, comments, concerns about?
No. So yes and no. So as of how they're presented and what we have here, I'm happy with it. So there's no real major changes. It's just a matter of no. I'm happy with what we have on the first one. Yes.
Okay. Don?
Page by page, you said?
Yeah, so 1,
fine.
if you got,
Okay.
Alright, Corey,
I like it.
Mr. Turner?
I'll let it go. I see where there may be a need for us to write some ordinances
Yes.
as we go forward here for landscaping. And then the second one related to trees.
just from the perspective of just being on the radar of the work that we'll be doing next year.
Right.
Great, okay. All right. Page 2. Mr. Turner, any thoughts on page 2?
No, because I didn't go through.
It's not the last time you'll see them, so I mean,
Yeah.
if after this you have some thoughts,
I haven't got any thoughts now, I didn't spend any time. I got 2 of these and I stopped
I tell you what then,
on
if
details, so.
something pipes up, then I'm gonna work with the commissioners here. I won't keep coming to you, just raise your hand if something comes to mind or you see something.
Okay.
Commissioner Bailey?
I
I'm sorry.
will go through them, and if I got some markups, I'll get that back to you.
I have no doubt. Commissioner Bailey?
I like the objective 4 about the M24 corridor. Do we wanna put anything in there about growing the east-west corridors to do some of the traffic, or is that getting too down in the weeds?
I believe we had some east-west language in there. Here, I will, let's see. East-west language. I believe it's there. If it's not, I will make a note to incorporate that somewhere. Commissioner Wolchek?
Yeah, I'm sorry, if I can just go back to page 1 for a second.
Oh,
I wanna build off what Bob said.
We're not even to two.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I'm going
no,
to
no.
listen to you again, I'll
That's
get it
fine,
next
that's
time.
fine, what you got?
But, that preserve existing tree rows, you know, the zoning ordinance, I guess the zoning, or the ordinance committee is working on that, from our last meeting. And, you know, that would be one that you could put a time frame on of, I don't know.
I don't wanna do that tonight.
Okay, that's
No,
fine.
just because like
I'll
once
move on.
we got them, then we'll
Got it.
start filling in priority.
So related to page 2, you know, I got hung up on the word absorb under that objective 4. You know, the, ensure that the M24 corridor can absorb the demand for high intensity uses. So I'm just picturing if we had to make an argument or not, if a development came in front of us that was a very high intensity use of some sort. And would this language, do you feel as a consultant, be strong enough to support an argument to say, sorry developer, you need to do something more to this property so that it's absorbed within the landscaping is more robust, or the buffers are more robust, or something, so that the rural feel is maintained? That's the intent of this, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few pieces of language in there that kind of relate to, you know, landscaping and streetscaping, like along 24 for more
Right.
impactful developments.
As I read through all of this, I was thinking, okay, if a preliminary plan is brought in front of us, what language would we use to help build our argument to say yes or no to that? Typically it would be if someone's asking for something and we vote no, we need some language to help support that. So that, I kept on thinking through that each time I hit some of these bullet points and some things we've already experienced, so. I'm fine with the way it's worded because, you know, you talk about developed landscape and streetscape standards. It's just how and who, when
Yeah, and
does that happen to help us if a development comes in front of us? Okay.
Mr. Baylor?
I'm all set.
I wanna make one more comment on number 5. I know we've got required dense screening and buffering for commercial, adjacent to residential, but what about residential to residential? To maybe protect some of the clear cutting entire.
I think, so is your concern there more or less screening, or is it like like the retention of natural landscapes and?
Retaining the natural so that, you know, if you have a development going next to a development, it's not just a clear cut, but at least look to protect some of the screening.
I don't think you can do that because you're as a landowner. You have the right to do whatever you want, essentially. And if you don't want any trees on your, or if you want to have an abundant amount of trees that look ridiculous, you know, but might be, you want shrubs everywhere, somebody else might see that as an eyesore. Somebody else might see clear cutting as, I don't want that, but that person does. I think that is a situation we probably couldn't put that in there.
Well, so that kind of works its way into like woodland ordinances and tree ordinances, which is something that is kind of being fleshed out. But maybe to your point, it's a reference to buffering between like dense residential and low intensity resident, like multifamily and single family or something along those
Yeah.
lines. Okay,
I had another item or two on page 2, if that's okay.
we're still on page
Sorry,
2.
You're done? We
Yeah.
got it. We're kind of going
You're
back and
good,
forth here.
we're still on page 2.
So, objective 6, the, limit expansions of public sewer or water on a petition by petition basis. I'm not familiar with that petition process, but from a consultant standpoint, does that give us the leverage? It sounds
It's so,
self-explanatory or
Yeah.
common sense that each development, preliminary plan review would incorporate, okay, is this going to be approved to connect or not?
yeah, and so the water and sewer committee is run through the building department, and so anyone who wants to hook up to the system has to petition them, in which Jim Sharp does an analysis to see if the REUs are there. So that's more or less to start thinking about like, how do we wanna start using REUs from the perspective of what kind of capacities do we want to build on for the utilities, and what kind of uses do we want tying into them? You know, as it makes its way up Lapeer Road, it's going to open up for more intense uses, but then there's conversations about, okay, should those intense uses be designed more towards industrial and commercial to accommodate that? Should it be designed more to accommodate residential, things of that nature? So it's really trying to kind of plant the seed of thinking about your urban service boundaries and your water and sewer, and how you wanna develop that system. Not, what's being built is being built, but beyond that, okay,
Outside of,
what kind of a capacity do we want to do next to maybe accommodate certain types of developments, but not necessarily others, or make sure that it doesn't track too far off the main line.
because Jim indicated in a previous meeting that the system has sewer capacity, and it could be added to, but there's areas that are currently out of that zone right now, but could connect if they put forth the funding and the infrastructure.
Yeah, and Jim would better be able to answer kind of how design affects what you can do. So, but this is part of that to say like those are
Okay,
things.
part of that petition process would be through the building department, which would hit
Right, what do
Sharp
we,
engineering.
correct, like what REUs are available,
Okay.
so. Okay.
I just have two more things here at the bottom about, update zoning to increase weight of traffic impacts for new development and level of service for intersections. That's an add, it's got an asterisk next to it, it wasn't
Yeah.
there before. It gets back to traffic again, right? Every time I read something that talks about traffic, or how are we gonna, what can we put in place to help us with that in the future? You know, have strong language to help us, because development keeps on happening, it's coming at us, but the roads really haven't changed a lot, and it doesn't appear that we have strong, plans for future road improvements to accommodate, you know, these hundreds and hundreds of residential units that seem to be getting
Yeah,
approved on an ongoing basis.
well, so I think that what you can look at there, or the intent of what that is to say, you know, you could have something set up to where, you know, if it requires a traffic impact study and it generates a certain threshold of trips, then the developer has to put forward so many improvements to help that traffic flow out into the roads. That's kind of really where it's going, is that they are going to generate a certain level of traffic, that improvements have to be included in the development and potentially off-site to help accommodate that flow. You've got kind of an interesting situation because you've got RCOC to deal with, and if you're close enough down, you've got MDOT to deal with, or at least the developer does, and they're gonna kind of go through their own system of assessing how that development's gonna impact that traffic. I will say that it's the kind of thing where if it's zoned for residential, and someone brings you a residential project, and they can, by zoning, put 300 units on it, your ability to stop that from happening is very constrained, because it's permitted by right. This mechanism is more or less to say, okay, we know it's going to come, but these improvements have to happen for the safety, health, and welfare of the community. So that that language is there to say that, to start to develop what kind of a mechanism could be put in place to trigger certain improvements if the site's gonna generate so much traffic.
Can we even do something, some language to have a traffic study for the community start
The way,
within a year, so that as developments are coming, or preliminary plans are coming in front of us, we have this information that tells us where we're at on the spectrum of good or bad for traffic, and we can make more informed decisions. We have, the public's come in front of us and said, we have cut-throughs on Tanview for other things,
Right.
so I just feel like we're at a disadvantage when we're making a decision on a future development, how it could impact the general welfare of the community.
yeah, I mean, right now, I'd have to go back and check the requirements, but typically right now, we work with the engineering, with Jim Sharp, to take a look at a project and then determine like what level of a traffic impact study is gonna be required. And so then that gets put in as part of the site plan. It's done by a third party, and that third party typically makes recommendations and outlines, the grade that those roads are operating at, A, B, C, D, E, F. And then we kind of go from there to see, are they incorporating the improvements that the traffic impact study is asking them to? And we're in a position to say that you need to. So that process is there, it probably needs to be refined, which again kind of leads back to why that language is there, is the emphasis for us to go do that.
Yeah, I don't have all the knowledge, I'm just asking if we can have some language baked in to help us be more proactive.
Well, that's, update,
Okay.
update the zoning,
Okay.
cool. Okay,
So
page,
that is, so basically just the update the zoning, that's the verbiage?
no, it says,
No, but, okay, go ahead, I'll let you.
no, I'm sorry.
You said, with update the zoning, and say your statement again, or what you were saying related to that.
What I was saying is, the way it reads is update zoning to increase rate of traffic impacts for new developments and level of service for intersections.
Yes.
My point being is that is your substantiation then to have us and the ORC and Jim Sharp Engineering work on your zoning language to put in kind of maybe a better system or a stricter threshold for if you are going to generate this much traffic, these types of improvements have to take place. Okay. On to page 3. Commissioner Ballard?
No, I'm good right this minute.
Commissioner Wojcik? No. I'm sorry.
You're good, no worries. No, I don't have any major comments on here, one of the comments that really pops out under the objective one is natural capacity of the land. That's one of the things in the previous master plan I'm glad is carried forward, because that's a very important term, it seems, as we're looking at developments and forcing what sometimes feels like being forced, very dense uses. And the natural capacity of the land phrase is something that I lean on often.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Commissioner Bailey?
The only one that kind of jumped out to me is explore the creation of several multifamily zoning districts. Several implies that we want to bring in a lot more density, or am I reading that wrong?
No, I mean, I get where you're coming from. I think what it more or less refers to, some communities will have like an RM1 and an RM2. An RM1 is really more or less for like a duplex, triplex, single-story kind of condo development, kind of like with enclaves.
Mm-hmm.
And then an RM2 would be something more akin to, what's up on the hill, Apple Ridge, by the high school? Do you know what the development I'm referring to?
Yeah.
So an RM2 would be something more like that. So this is just, is there an interest in developing multiple family dwelling designations that kind of account for which one goes where? The future land use designation kind of calls it out. It's still one category, but it kind of has two subcategories to it, but your zoning only has one multiple family right now.
Okay. Just when I first read this, and I know community members will read this and say, oh, they're wanting to add more multifamily developments. and that's what our community keeps coming and saying, no, we want less of those.
All right, let me see if wording is something we can work
Okay.
with on that.
Again, I could be reading it wrong.
No, you're fine. Okay. Commissioner Bailey, page 4.
Nothing really jumped out at me, no.
Commissioner Wolfsack,
No, nothing, thank you.
yeah, sure. Commissioner Bailey?
I was just more of a comment, for the objective number 2, the update zoning and safety path ordinance to require pedestrian connections between properties. I was happy to see that change it, so it helps with the walkability and bikeability of our community, so.
Yeah, no, that's a great, yeah, I like that one too. I would like to see kind of a requirement for neighboring developments to connect.
Yes.
Great. All right. Commissioner Bailey, any thoughts on page 5?
I'm good.
Commissioner Wolfsack?
Let's see here, under objective 5, promote the use of green building technologies and solar energy that encourage building renovations and new building projects to achieve green building certification such as LEED. How do we promote that, right? I've worked on LEED projects before, and they're often very difficult to achieve. The cost benefit isn't always there, but using the strategies of LEED are they're good, right? They're just more sustainable, they lower energy costs. But to actually spend the time and effort to go through getting all the credits and everything can be a very time-consuming and difficult process through the whole construction phase. So, but I'm wondering, what could we do to help promote that within the community? Is there strategies that, as a development is presented, what do we offer them to promote, right? That might be something, if we want more buffer zones and more trees, that are more desirable trees types, maybe we work that into our tree ordinance or something, and, we find some land somewhere and we start growing trees, and I don't know.
Sure.
We give the developer some of our mature trees we've been growing on some of our property to help.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of ways to promote it, that's all. That's that are economical, efficient, and
I mean, sometimes it can be an incentive within the development itself to say, that if you utilize certain technologies, you can reduce your parking requirement by, 10 or 20%. And they might say, we don't need that parking anyways, that's a smaller parking lot we gotta build, it's more green space that opens up. Sometimes it's a clear pathway to permitting because, building height restrictions, if you put solar panels on top, technically they count towards that. And if it's gonna tip them over the edge of what's allowed, maybe working with some exception within the zoning to say it's permitted. So there's like development bonuses that you can kind of throw them, as far as how they lay their site out, or what requirements we might be able to relax if they're using that type of
Okay.
system.
okay. I see what you mean, okay. Other than that, I'm good, thank you.
Okay,
Page 5.
Commissioner Bailey?
No, I'm good on no.
Okay. Commissioner Bailey, page 6.
The only one that jumped out to me was objective 3, obtain air quality improvements through restriction on burning and regulation. Is this industrial or residential? I mean, if somebody's got 20 acres up in horse country and they're burning a brush pile.
I'm sorry, where are you again?
Sorry, okay, I'm on page 7.
Sorry.
Did I move ahead?
Yeah,
No, I'm good with page 6.
okay. Commissioner Wolfsack?
So I found it very difficult. Obviously, asterisks were things that were added, but things that were removed from the 19, I don't know, right? So I'm having to go back and forth, and it was very difficult to review this section, very time consuming. The one strategy I'd really like to see from the 2019 carried over is, this is from page 70 in the master plan of 2019, to continue to enforce natural feature buffers required by the zoning ordinance. I'm not sure why that would have been removed, but I leaned on that heavily when making a vote months ago. And, I think removing that would not be a bad idea for, our forefathers put this in there for a reason in 2019, and it really came in handy.
Yeah, and
I don't know if it's buried in the wording somewhere, and I just didn't see it, but, it was very specific in the 19, and it seems to be kind of, diluted a little bit in the draft.
Okay.
Alright, well, I have that note down.
So by making that note, will you be putting that in there then?
Yeah, I mean, we can, if we missed it somewhere, if it conflicts or confuses with something else that's meant to do the same thing, I mean, we can either highlight that so you guys understand it better, or we can put the language back in.
I would just add, if we have a review process you want us to go through like this again, just my own comments would be, if you can somehow help us with what a side-by-side comparison might be, so that I'm not having to, it saves time in reviewing, and it will give you, I think, I'll be able to provide you with a better review of what you're asking for, if I can go through it faster. But flipping back and forth between the two was very challenging.
Yeah, no, I noted. Commissioner Ballard?
I'm good with this one.
Alright. Page 7?
No comments on this one.
Commissioner Wolosek?
I have no comments, I kinda ran out of gas at that point.
It was a lot.
I hit a few more, but, they were all related to roads and, density, development density, the things I've already mentioned,
Okay.
and preserving natural features. I'm good on page 7.
Okay. Commissioner Bailey?
The only question I had was about the air quality, and burning. Was that residential, or is that commercial, or is that both? I mean, obviously, if we have businesses burning, things like that, but again, if you've got somebody burning a brush pile out in 20 acres,
Right. So maybe that's more or less, it can either go, or it could just kind of more or less reference, larger rural sites.
yeah,
But like-
or just specify, I mean, obviously, they still need burn permits, but
Commissioner Bailey, page 8.
I didn't have anything on that one.
Commissioner Wolosek?
Nothing on page 8.
Commissioner Ballard?
All set on page 8.
Alright. Commissioner Ballard, page 9.
Page 9, I was good. There was something on there I had written down. I have to find out where I wrote that down at, but as of right this, because we're going pretty quick. Let me, as of right now, no. Let me review my notes again,
Sure.
because I think there was one thing on here.
Sure. And anything, again, it's a lot of information, but anything after the fact, in email, however, whatever works, like I said, this isn't the only chance we have to do this. Commissioner Wolosek, for page 7? Oh, I'm
Just
sorry, page
under,
9.
in the middle of the page, under transportation goal 1, or objective 1, the third or second box down, to coordinate with the road commission and MDOT
Mhm.
to ensure road improvements and maintenance enhance the efficiency of safety. Again, it's like, okay, great words, but let's go, right? We gotta get this going. And how? When and how? And I'm not asking, I guess,
No, I know.
you for an answer on that. Is just how can you help us, or what do we need to do to make this a priority? A 6-month or 1 year or 18-month type goal, and we get something going on the traffic side of things. I just feel like we're so far behind when these developments come sit in front of us. They talk about bringing hundreds of homes to the area, and our traffic seems to be 20 minutes for somebody that lives in the community to get their child to middle school,
Sure.
so.
Okay. Commissioner Bailey, I'll come back to you.
Yeah, that's fine.
No, I'm good on that one.
All right. Commissioner Ballard.
The question that I did have is the one that says explore educational opportunities related to new transportation technologies, such as autonomous and connected vehicles. Can you, so that was originally from the 2019,
Okay.
because, right?
Correct.
If that, is that truly one of the goals? Like, I guess maybe why is that, can you explain why that's in there?
I think it's more or less just to pursue better understanding, like the changes in mobility that are coming and how they might affect, you know, your current system and or improvements that you might wanna make. All of this doesn't necessarily have to be pursued, you know, by the township from the master planning perspective. It's more or less, again, a substantiation if the township wanted to explore, again, kind of better understanding these things. Again, I'm not saying it comes, it goes.
My take on it was, is that really a goal of the community, and is that or a part of the master plan? Maybe why that was suggested to put in there, and if it just, it's more for curiosity of why that one was specifically implemented and added into it.
I mean, I think from the perspective that supposedly these types of technology are supposed to help with traffic.
Okay.
So to the extent that we better understand how that might help and how it plays into this larger conversation, it's there. But again, you're looking for clarification, you're not saying take it out.
I'm not saying take it out, but more or less, why was it put in there?
Okay.
And how, maybe more or less, how did it get in there, and why, is that really a goal of the master plan? Is it really something, or is it just something that's in there, to be put in there, I guess is what I'm saying. Are we really gonna be putting effort into making that an objective?
And
is
that's
what
why,
I'm saying.
yeah, and so that's why I'm getting feedback from you. So if
Okay.
you don't think so, you know what I mean, then it can be kind of a consensus that maybe it should go. What would your thought, take, leave?
I just found it to be just a strange goal to have. Not to say that it's good or bad, or it's just odd to have a goal like that in there as a goal and objective. Knowing resources that we have and what we're doing, that's all.
Okay.
It's more of a comment that I'm saying.
No, 100%. That, I just, like I said, for me, I just wanna make sure I'm following the lead on stay, go, but it looks like clarification kind of was the point.
Are we really gonna be pursuing it, is what I'm saying.
You tell me.
I'm one of many,
No,
one
I
of many up here,
understand.
one of many in the, in the offices, so that's the point that I'm trying to make.
Okay. Okay. Alright, page 10. Commissioner Baylor?
Give me a second, let me take a look at this one.
Okay. Commissioner Wolosek?
I broke a record here. Very bottom, contract study to identify traffic network improvements.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Regardless,
That's all I have.
regardless of the objective, that should be in every single objective.
I'm sorry, I just feel like I have to keep on,
No, you're,
like,
that's fine.
it almost feels like it should be an agenda item every meeting we have.
I think that's a big one.
Should that be a requirement for every preliminary site plan that comes before this board, that a traffic study is done to see its impact, or how it impacts the total area?
I guess it kind of, it falls on the,
I mean, if it's a facility or something that's gonna have 5 or 6 cars, that's one thing. But if you're gonna put in 100 homes, then I would think it would be apropos to require that to
And that's-
meet the preliminary site plan approval.
and I think that's akin to what we were discussing earlier, is establishing some sort of parameter that that just basically you've triggered now, you
Well,
require a traffic impact study.
Maybe some words need to be put in to our ordinance on the requirement for preliminary site plans.
That's, yeah, that's what we've been, yeah, essentially, we've just been discussing beefing up that language to say,
Right.
if this, then a traffic study is required.
Right.
Commissioner Bailey?
The only one that kind of jumped out to me was objective 5, work with Oakland County as well as other agencies to identify transportation, develop a network with SMART to utilize transportation funding and NODA services. I don't know, when I first looked at that, is that something we really?
Let me tell you why I put that one in there, and it can come or it can go, is you guys pay into the smart millage, and what do you get for it? I don't, that was really I guess my prime for you guys to kind of think of. I'm not saying do you need it, but you do pay into it. So is there something in that, in what SMART offers, whether it be, I don't think we're talking about 53-foot buses rolling up and down M24, unless you want them to, but some sort of, at least a toe in the water with a relationship with SMART and NODA on, are there transportation services that they offer that either you never even thought of, or the community could utilize better, or does utilize? That came from your paying for it, maybe there's something to get out of it.
Yeah, and when I looked at that, it was like, to me, that's just opening a can of worms to pay more and more and more into this. I always thought, like, with NODA being set up, that it was you pay, you ride, but I just found out that, we have a millage and things like that to fund all this.
Right.
Is
And
that
it's
something we need?
Well, I guess in the way that millage is structured, because it's regional, it's something the region votes on, it's not something the township could opt in or out of. You might not win that millage vote every single, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
like, it's not just township residents that get to say yes or no to that, it's a regional thing. So if it seems as though the trend's gonna be that the region is going to approve of smart millages, again, if you're paying into it, maybe you should get some for it. Again, it can come and go if it sends a message that you're not looking to send. I put it in there, you're paying for it.
Yeah, that one I'm not in favor of.
Thoughts?
The bullet point above that.
No, go ahead.
No,
The continue regular meetings with RCOC, is that, do we have those?
Supervisor Curtis meets, I don't know if it's like on his calendar every single month, but he does have meetings with them.
Okay. Sorry, I just had to bring it back to traffic again.
No, it's fine, I'd love to be a fly on the wall for those meetings. Cause the supervisor is well aware of traffic concerns within the community.
You missed the bottom point.
Oh, no,
he saw it.
I did, I jumped right on that one, but when you were reading the one above, my eyes.
But just so I know what I'm doing, smart, language, come stay or go.
I wasn't even aware that we paid for SMART, so it's kind of like new information to me. I was like, oh, okay, so if I can see why you put it in there, I'm okay with it having it in still.
Commissioner Wolfsack?
I need more information on that. I don't know anything about how it's funded, where it's funded, services.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with it at all.
I'm familiar with NODA, so at least.
Why don't we leave it for this round?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not in favor of SMART or NODA, but, that's.
Yeah, just kind of make an earmark to circle back with me on that one.
Okay.
Commissioner Turner?
Actually, NODA part of the smart system
Right.
for the region. And I think we need to leave something in here that we can use to push with them to say, as you're developing bus routes for other areas, what are you doing for northern Oakland County? Are you having a bus that comes up here in the morning and another one at night? Have you nothing? But you're taxing this. This is not a new issue. This come up many years ago when Brooks Patterson was the county
Exactly.
director, and he put up a very big fuss. And I don't remember whether it ended up or going to a vote and getting canceled or not, but it was stopped at that point. And they came back with it this time with, before I think we could opt out of it, and we did, but this time, there was no opting out. It either was approved for everybody or approved for nobody. And so, I think somehow we ought to look at how we can take advantage of it in the future to get back what we're putting into it in our taxes. So I would leave it in there in some form.
Okay. All right.
Because NODA has just expanded where they have services for. It used to be they were Oxford, Orion, and Addison. They've now included Clarkston and Independence Township in their service area.
Yeah, and so I don't know if you guys may have seen, like, those are more like shuttle bus style
Yeah.
services.
But I was always under the impression that to use that service, you paid for that service. I didn't realize that it was.
You might pay, you still might pay a couple of bucks.
It's like bus, it's structured similar to bus fare, it's subsidized.
Yeah. But you can call them and say, I want to ride to my doctor's appointment. And they'll send a vehicle that will pick you up, take you to your doctor's appointment. You tell them you'll be through in 2 hours and you want to ride back home. They'll pick you up, take you back home. And you'll be the only one on the bus. It won't be like a bus that runs from here to Detroit that makes 30 stops and it picks up and drops off 50 people.
I'm more in favor of Uber.
Well,
I don't have to pay tax to Uber.
Yeah, you would give them $30 to go around the block.
Amazon
Yeah.
deliver from one place to the other.
All right. Well, it's a good point of conversation. And I'll we can tweak it a little bit if we move forward, but for now, I'll leave it in.
see, if these guys don't know how to use it, that means that there's probably a lot of other people that don't know how to use it.
Well, no, and it's,
And if nothing else, require them to put out some TV publications or whatever. We're now servicing those areas.
yeah, like I said, the point of it was you're paying for it. So I was like, oh, put it in there and see if there's something to be had from it. Okay. Commissioner Bailey, anything for page 11?
No.
Commissioner Wolosek?
Nothing on page 11.
Nothing on page 11.
Commissioner Bailey, page 12.
No, nothing on page 12.
Commissioner Wolosek?
Nothing, thank you.
Commissioner Bailey?
No, I'm good with that one.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. It's not easy, I know it's not perfect. Probably doesn't always come to you maybe in a manner that you feel is as useful as it could be, but I do appreciate the amount of time and effort you guys put into this, so thank you. Again, after the fact, thoughts, ideas, markups, you can email them to us. And I would definitely say at this point, we probably want to shift into that mode as opposed to waiting for the next meeting, because we're trying to get through this, from the perspective of having you guys a full draft pretty soon. So again, if there's, unless you feel there's something that is important to be discussed at a commission level, a few tweaks here or there, or thoughts or ideas or questions work via email as well.
Do you guys have a timeline on which you want to have it done by? I mean, is something were you guys working off of?
Was it yesterday? No, I mean, I would say right now, we are probably somewhere around the 75 to 80% mark on a full draft to hand you guys. With that, you know, it's gonna go through your guys' filter, you know, at least once or twice at that level. Then it would need to go to, then we have a 63-day period in which the neighbors get to view it. Township board gets a run at it as well, so I would say realistically, we would love to have it adopted in the second quarter of 25. You know, if there's an opportunity for that to be sooner, without rushing, you know, then we'll take it. All right,
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
All right, moving on to 11, new business, which we have none. 12, communication and committee reports. Ordinance review committee.
Excuse me. The township board last night approved 2 more of the ordinances that we have updated and you folks approved. The one on the electric vehicle addition, and the other one was some updated information in sections 17 and 18. Those are done, so in the last 4 months, I think we've now put through 4 ordinances that have been updated and the board has approved them, and they are now part of our ordinance manual. Next month, we're gonna really look and finish our proposed plan for next year of areas that we wanna look at, either ordinance updates or new ordinances or things that way. They will include, as I mentioned last time, landscaping, woodland, and more along those lines that will need to be added to our ordinance manual.
Thank you very much. I know last meeting, Mr. Knoll talked about the 2 gravel inspections that were completed, so I don't think there's anything new to report there. 13, planner engineering reports. You have Mr. Sharp's update in your packet. Any questions or things to go over on that one?
No.
All right.
Can I say something real quick?
Sure.
So just as kind of a heads up, we did receive the final site plan application for Barron's, the industrial site, today. We're still in the process of taking a look at it, but their hope is to be on the December 12th Planning Commission meeting. I think with the way the holidays fall, that's our hope as well. So just as kind of a heads up for your December planning, December 12th, we're hoping we'll have Barron Industries' final site plan. So just as a heads up.
Because we only have the one meeting in December, correct?
No.
26th is sitting out there.
The schedule is the 12th and the 26th,
Okay.
according to Susan's calendar.
Yeah, you could cut the enthusiasm with a knife.
I was just gonna say, we're the first week in November and we're to a 4-person quorum. I wouldn't hold my breath on that one.
I mean, I don't think it would necessarily be something where we would schedule master plan if that's all there was for the 26th. But like I said, I haven't had a chance to dive into Barron's stuff yet, but the
Okay.
hope is that we can get them on for the 12th.
Okay, perfect. All right, with that, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion?